Hey, are you ready to jump into a career where things move fast and you're working on a global scale?
Yeah, it's a fascinating field.
Today, we're diving deep into the world of import-export, specifically for electronics and telecommunications equipment.
Right. So, ever wonder how those awesome new phones or laptops end up in your hands?
It's a long journey.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to break it all down today.
We've got tons of info today from RoleCatcher's career guide on this exact role, import-export specialists,
Hmm.
and some really interesting insights about their platform and how it helps people navigate today's job market.
It's super competitive out there.
But first, we got to define what an import-export specialist in electronics telecom actually does all day.
So, picture this. You are the crucial link
Mhm.
between the manufacturers overseas, places like China or Korea,
Right.
and the businesses. And then ultimately, of course, the customers here.
The people who want the cool gadgets.
Exactly. They're negotiators. They're logistics experts, and they have to be masters of navigating international regulations.
Sounds complicated.
It can be.
Yeah.
Because they're making sure that, let's say, the latest smartphone coming out of Korea or maybe some really advanced telecom equipment from Europe actually gets here safely and on time.
Okay, so it's not just about knowing where to stamp the paperwork then, right? I mean, I'm sure that's a big part of it.
Oh, there's definitely mountains of paperwork, trust me.
I bet.
But you got to think about it like this one wrong digit, one misplaced form could mean that a huge shipment of the hottest new gaming consoles gets stuck in port.
And nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that.
Yeah.
So these specialists are all about the details.
Yeah.
They're making sure every I is dotted, every T is crossed when it comes to those customs forms, trade agreements, the whole 9 yards.
That sounds pretty high pressure.
It definitely can be.
Well, this role catcher guide actually calls out some of the core tasks that these specialists handle on a daily basis.
Yeah.
We're talking about managing those end-to-end import and export processes, making sure that everything lines up perfectly with customs laws.
It's a lot to juggle.
It sounds like a really high pressure balancing act.
It is. Think about it. You're coordinating with suppliers from all over the world, right? You've got your freight forwarders on another continent. And meanwhile, you're keeping track of what's going on with international trade.
So you need to be up on current events too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
You could be negotiating a contract in the morning, and then suddenly in the afternoon, you're dealing with some crazy customs delay.
That does sound like a whirlwind.
Definitely keeps you on your toes.
Speaking of whirlwind, where do these specialists actually work? They can't be doing all of that from behind a desk, can they?
You're right. I mean, there's definitely office work involved, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But these specialists often end up in some pretty dynamic environments.
Like what? Give us the details.
Okay, so one day, you might be at a super busy port watching a giant shipment get unloaded, and then the next day, you're on a plane to go visit a supplier in Asia.
So it sounds like a fast-paced job
Oh, yeah.
with a lot of moving parts. But what about the skills that you actually need to thrive as an import-export specialist?
Well, you got to be able to think on your feet. That's for sure.
Okay, so quick thinking, important.
Absolutely. Imagine that you've got this huge shipment coming in from Shenzhen, right?
Right.
And then, boom, there's a typhoon in the South China Sea.
Oh, no.
Exactly. Your carefully planned logistics just went out the window.
Yeah.
You got to be able to adapt to these unexpected challenges, right?
Right.
And then find creative solutions to keep those shipments moving.
So you're like a logistical chess master, always thinking 10 steps ahead.
That's a good way to put it.
And I imagine that that involves really deeply understanding those international regulations that you mentioned earlier.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Knowing those regulations inside and out, that is mission critical.
Yeah.
One wrong document, one little mistake, and your entire shipment could be stuck in port for weeks.
And that's going to cost time and money.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about knowing where to stamp the paperwork here.
Right.
You have to really understand all the little details,
Oh, yeah.
all the nuances of international trade agreements, customs, clearance procedures. It's a lot.
So it's not just moving boxes. It's you're navigating this whole hidden web of rules that most people don't even know about.
Exactly. It's a whole world behind the scenes.
Fascinating. Well, RoleCatcher also highlights some other important skills, they mention meticulous attention to detail.
Oh, yeah. You got to be detail-oriented for sure.
Is that where the meticulous part comes in? Making sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed on those customs forms?
You got it. One tiny mistake can snowball into a huge headache down the line.
Makes sense.
Hmm.
But here's something I didn't expect. They actually list communication as one of the top skills for this role.
Really?
Yeah, and they don't just mean being good on the phone.
Right.
They're talking about how you're basically a bridge between cultures and languages and time zones.
Oh, for sure.
Like you might have to explain some really complex regulation to a supplier in China, and then 5 minutes later, you're on the phone negotiating a contract with a logistics company in Europe.
It's a juggling act.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
So you need those strong communication skills to build relationships and make sure everyone's on the same page.
100%.
Yeah.
You got to be able to connect with people from all walks of life.
So we're talking about someone who's not just a logistics expert, but they're also like a skilled communicator, and they can navigate all these cultural differences.
Exactly. It's a unique skill set for sure.
That's quite a combination. Speaking of navigating, let's talk about career trajectory.
Okay, sure.
What does the path to advancement look like for an aspiring import-export specialist?
Well, the cool thing is this isn't a dead-end job at all.
Okay, good to know.
RoleCatcher actually outlines 5 different career stages.
5.
Yeah. And each one comes with more responsibility, more complexity. You know how it goes.
Of course. So you're moving up in the world.
Exactly. You might start out as like a junior import-export specialist,
Right.
helping out the more senior team members learning the ropes.
Paying your dues.
Exactly.
Huh.
And then from there, you could move on to handling those end-to-end processes on your own.
Wow.
Maybe even leading a team someday,
Yeah.
or even overseeing like global operations for a big company.
So there's definitely room for growth.
Tons of room for growth.
5 stages. That's amazing. That's a whole career ladder to climb.
That's right.
It sounds like there are opportunities to learn and grow at every level.
Absolutely.
But with the field as like complex and constantly changing as international trade, I imagine that continuous learning is super important.
Oh yeah, you got to be a lifelong learner to make it in this field for sure.
Right.
New regulations pop up all the time. Technologies change, trade agreements shift.
You got to stay current.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got to be adaptable and informed if you want to stay ahead of the curve.
And it seems like RoleCatcher doesn't just like tell you about the career path, they actually give you the tools to make it happen.
Right.
We were talking before about their AI resume thing.
Yeah, the AI-powered resume builder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else stood out to you about their platform?
Honestly, they seem to really get it. Like they understand the challenges of trying to start a career in this field.
Okay. Yeah, it's not easy.
Not at all. Like take their interview practice tools, for example.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about those.
So you can actually like rehearse your answers to common interview questions,
That's cool.
get feedback and everything.
Yeah.
It's great for building confidence, especially before those high-pressure interviews.
It's like having a personal coach right in your pocket,
Exactly.
helping you nail those tricky questions about like Incoterms and letters of credit,
All the fun stuff.
all that jargon.
Exactly.
So that's interview prep, but what about finding the jobs in the first place? Is it still just like endlessly scrolling through job boards online?
Well, luckily, RoleCatcher has this thing called direct employer matching.
Okay, that sounds promising.
Yeah, instead of just like throwing your resume out into the void.
Right, you never know if anyone's even going to see it.
Exactly. With this, you're actually connecting with companies who are actively looking for someone with your skills.
That's awesome. Less like cold calling, more like warm leads.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They actually like analyze your profile and then they show you opportunities that match your experience, your career goals.
So you're not wasting time on jobs that aren't a good fit.
Exactly. It just streamlines the whole process.
That sounds incredibly efficient. Like they're cutting through all the noise and just bringing you the opportunities that really make sense.
Exactly.
I love it. So they find you the right jobs. What about keeping track of everything? I imagine that gets overwhelming fast.
Right. Well, they've got you covered. They have this cool feature called the RoleCatcher Capture plugin. It lets you save jobs from all these different websites.
So you don't have to like copy and paste everything into a spreadsheet.
Exactly. And then there's this board view where you can see all your saved jobs visually.
Oh, that's nice.
You can keep everything organized, track your progress,
Yeah.
prioritize the opportunities you're most excited about.
So you're not just like randomly applying to stuff.
Right. You're being strategic about your career.
I like it.
And you can even like add your own notes to each job posting, like maybe your research about the company or whatever. So you've got all your info in one place.
It's like having a command center for your career.
Totally. Gives you that extra edge that you need in today's job market.
So there you have it, a deep dive into the world of being an import-export specialist.
One of the most global careers you can have.
It really is.
You're working with cutting-edge tech, building relationships across borders. It's pretty cool.
It's a vital part of the global economy, and it sounds like there's never a dull moment.
For sure. You've got to love a fast-paced environment, that's for sure.
If you thrive on challenges, if you get excited about global connections, and you're not afraid of a little paperwork,
And believe me, there's going to be paperwork.
yeah, you've got to be okay with that.
But the rewards are huge.
They sound it. Well, that's it for today's deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring those career horizons.